Just pulled up for the first stop and just have a look at that. You just don't get views like that anywhere else. That is absolutely stunning. What a road. It's a great mix of twisties, it's a mix of views, little single narrow tracks like this with nobody else on them because all the tourists stick to the main roads. And cars like this are just perfect for roads like this. Absolutely perfect. So what is it? Well, it's a 1993 Rover. It's a Rover Mini 1275, and these are sort of the last of the Minis. This is a 1993 car, so it's one of the last of the carburettor cars because emissions laws and regulations were coming in. Cars had to be more efficient, better on fuel. So the carburettor died and they went with a single point fuel injection and then multi-point fuel injection. I wanted a carburettor car so that I could do the upgrades and stuff that I wanted to do to this car, like the Weber carb that's on it at the moment. And yeah, it's a Mini. It's brilliant. Everybody loves a Mini. You drive along, people smile, everybody knows what it is. Straight away it's recognisable as a Mini. So yeah, that's what the car is. A few things that really surprised me about this car are how on earth it was still able to be manufactured in a time when car safety was becoming more and more prevalent. I mean, look at the size of the doors. The engine is the crumple zone, so if you were to have a high-speed front-end collision, the engine is going to end up in the cabin, which is probably not going to be very good for the occupants. The A-pillars are incredibly thin, as are the B-pillars, which is great for visibility. Compared to a modern car, the visibility is phenomenal. But in the event of a rollover, less good. Side impact protection? No. Rear impact protection? Sort of no. And front impact protection? Again, sort of not really. So how on earth this car lasted as long as it did? I believe the last Minis to roll off the production line were in the early sort of 2000s, 2001, 2002. And I'm surprised it lasted that long. So I said that it's a 1275. What does that mean? Well, it refers to the engine size. It's a 1.275 litre engine, or a 1.3 litre engine if you round it up. This engine has been modified. It's now bored out, so it's got larger pistons. The cylinder bores have been drilled out essentially to make it a 1380, so it's a nearly 1.4 litre engine. It's got an aluminium radiator for better cooling. It's had the thermostat removed. Silicone hoses, the hoses that were on it were pretty perished, and if you're going to replace the hoses you may as well do an upgrade. Silicone HT leads to limit arcing between the leads with a high intensity coil. So it's got programmable ignition. So it's got programmable ignition curves that you can set, and I've had it, you know, I've got it set up as I need it for how I've got the car at the moment. It's got roller rockers in here, 1.5 ratio lift, so they lift open the valves slightly more. So what high ratio roller rockers are essentially is if you've got a standard cam, you can have the valves open slightly more, not for longer, they don't change the duration, but they do change how much the valves open. So you get a little bit more performance with 1.5 ratio roller rockers as opposed to the standard 1:1 ratio. Some other notable changes on the car are the door furniture, the door cards, the bucket seats, and the woodrim motor lead steering wheel, the wooden dash, and the white clocks. None of these were standard on this car. This car would have had a grey cloth interior. When I first got the car, that's the interior that the car had. It is actually really comfy. The seats that this car had in it originally were mega comfy, but they just didn't look very nice, and it was cheaper for me to buy an entire Mini and take this interior out of it than it was for me to have those seats retrimmed. So I bought a Mini that had this interior. I swapped out everything, put my interior into that car, sold that car, and I gained an interior. I see it as a free interior, but I don't think it really was. It's also got what's called a Mark 1 front end. So the early Mark 1 Minis had this front end on them with the mustache grille, is what this is called. And it would have had overriders as well on the bumper, which this car hasn't got. Going for a sort of Mark 1 look with the car, I much prefer the cleaner Mark 1 shape with the 10-inch steel wheels, the reverse lamp on the tailgate, and I have the overriders on the back. So let's go for a bit of a spin through the mountains, enjoy the absolutely phenomenal scenery that North Wales has to offer, and make some noises through the hills. Come with me on a drive through some of the most scenic spots that Snowdonia has to offer. So let's go. About driving roads like this is there's just always something to look at. Like, you look to your right now and it's just a sheer drop with a mountain above you, and in a car like this you really do feel very small. God, I hate cyclists. At least I can look at the view. Why you would cycle the view, I don't know. It can't be enjoyable riding up that hill. And I hate to tell them, but it's not going to get any less steep. Why you would put yourself through that, I don't know, when you could be sat back and enjoying the view, like I'm doing. This makes much more sense. I'm not sweaty or out of breath. I mean, I am because I'm fat, but I'm not sweaty or out of breath because I'm riding a bicycle. The trouble with 10-inch wheels is little wheels go deeper into the ruts, so you really do feel every bump in the road in this car. And generally cars with a short wheelbase tend to be quite choppy in the way that they ride, and this is no exception. I wouldn't describe it as uncomfortable, but I would describe it as choppy. Ooh, a straight stretch. That's enough. I really don't fancy driving at 60 miles an hour down there. Sheep there, pretty standard sight in North Wales. Right, that's it for the narrow, twisty, bumpy road. Let's get onto the slightly wider. think a car like this doesn't really make much sense, and I do agree with them to an extent. Day to day, as a daily driver in modern traffic, especially if you've got a commute that's over sort of 20 minutes, half an hour, this car doesn't make sense. It just doesn't anymore. It's noisy, it hasn't got air conditioning, it's not particularly comfortable, it's not small inside. Yes, it's a Mini, but in terms of leg room, I'm a short ass and my legs are bent, so if you're anything taller than 5'8", then you're really going to struggle in this car unless you have the seat moved back. In terms of space, rear seat passengers, they're not going to be comfortable. Crash protection, as we discussed previously, there isn't much, so having this car to use every day is a bit of a silly decision. Having this car to use occasionally and enjoy on a day like today on a road like this, it absolutely makes 100% sense. There is no better road or day to enjoy a car like this, and this is what cars like this are all about now. They've gone from being the affordable every man's daily car to being the affordable every man's classic to enjoy on a weekend, to enjoy on a sunny evening or a sunny afternoon, to be driven occasionally and enjoyed, and not just enjoyed by you, the owner, but enjoyed by everyone else. You drive past people walking and they might be having a bit of a miserable day, the weather might not be that great. They see one of these driving past, immediately they stop what they're doing, they look and they smile. And that is just the best feeling. It's one of the things I really like about owning a classic car, is the enjoyment that it not only brings you as an owner, but the enjoyment that it brings everyone else around you who sees the car. They go, "Whoa, look at that! Not seen one of them in a while," or they reminisce, "Oh, I used to have one of those, that was one of my first cars, I learned to drive in one of those." You know, it's one of the things about, especially a classic British car, that just, it has that personality about it. People aren't interested in this, enjoying a road in a silly old car. They're interested in getting from A to B and having the latest technology and the latest car, and that means that it's going to be electric. And electric cars just don't have the personality or the soul that a car like this has. And normal day-to-day people just don't understand that. You know, to them a car is just a means to get from A to B, to get to their destination, to get to work, to transport stuff. They don't have a connection to their everyday car. And neither do I. I don't have a connection to a Freelander. It is just a tool to me. But to see the engine be completely pushed out, I'm not ready for that. I don't want that. If this car was electric, it just wouldn't have the same personality, the same soul. You know, to be able to enter a corner and downshift, a bit of a carb noise, that's what this car's all about. That's what cars are all about. They shouldn't just be a tool to get you from A to B. If it should be something to enjoy just quick enough for roads like this, I think. This car has no rev counter, so it's up to you to decide when to change gear. The red line is whenever the valves start bouncing. There's no electronic cut in and out red line on this car. So you can overrev this engine if you're not careful, which I don't recommend. I'm not wanting more. And it will do 70. This is a car that will sit on the motorway at 70 miles an hour quite happily. It's very noisy. There's wind noise from the doors, there's transmission whine, there's the engine screaming because it's not geared to do 70. It just isn't built for that anymore. This was built around a time when cars were, you know, lucky to be able to do 55, 60 miles an hour on the motorway. And I think that's one of the reasons that British Leyland in particular failed, is they were still building cars that they'd been building since the 60s. I mean, this is essentially a car that was built in the early 1960s, still being manufactured up to the early 2000s, and that just doesn't work. Not when there are newer, safer, more technologically advanced cars being brought in from Japan and Germany. You know, we were destined to fail, really. at the moment, especially now that the car prices weirdly have dropped quite a bit. You know, the value of cars like these, they have gone down. So it's a buyer's market, and I think everyone should have a car like this. Even if you're a car enthusiast or not, you just need to have a car like this to experience the feeling and the sound and just everything that cars like this have to offer.